It gets me so angry. I was like, how can we value something that, yeah, it's monetary things and it can buy you things, but why aren't we valuing culture and art that actually makes our cities so much more vibrant and connects us?
Welcome to CryptoChicks Corner, an educational podcast to teach you the basics of blockchain technology and how to harness it to start or expand your own business. CryptoChicks is a nonprofit organization on a mission to grow the professional and leadership potential of women in blockchain and artificial intelligence. I'm your host, Ashley Spradlin, and welcome to our corner. In this episode, you'll hear from Amelia. Amelia joined the CryptoChicks hatchery after starting a successful Web2 business called Art Pharmacy. She built her passion into a Web3 business called Sugar Glider Digital, and I'm excited to share her story with you today. Here's our conversation. All right. Hi, Amelia. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Thank you. Thanks for having me on you the Crypto Chicks this morning. Very exciting.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. So it's late afternoon for me and early morning for you. Can you remind me of where you are in the world?
Yeah, so I'm in Sydney, Australia. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's in the middle of winter. I've got like a little radiator next to me.
Wow.
It's yeah, it's people think that it's winter does get cold here. So, and especially after being in Austin and New York in the summer, I came back and it was a bit of a rude awakening, let me tell you.
That's funny. Did you come to Austin for Consensus? Or were you here
That's
at
right.
another time?
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, and that's why how I met you guys at you did a Crypto Chicks event, which is fantastic. It was so good.
Yeah. I really enjoyed. I was only there for part of Consensus because I participated in a canoe race that kind of happened like at the very end, so I had to leave early. But I live just south of Austin, so we're having very different weather experiences right now. It's been over 108 degrees every day for as long as I can remember, and I'm dying.
Yes, so that's the thing. I sort of think if I ever went to the US, where would I live? I'm not sure Austin would be up there just because of the. I mean, you got Barton Springs, you can hang out, I guess. I mean, that's just insane because it's freezing and there's little turtles that run around in there. Like literally, I saw a turtle when I was swimming in there. It was with like all these people on floaties. Um, yeah, it's a hot place. It's hot.
Yeah. Well, I just thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you ever had a chance to listen to the first season of Crypto Chicks Corner, but in that season, I mostly explained like the basics of blockchain to people. And in this season, I'm really excited to invite guests on who have some experience in business development and Web3. And you are one of the projects that came through our hatchery program, which is like a startup incubator. And so that's why I reached out to you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit about your experience. Let's start with just your background. So, what is your experience as an entrepreneur, and what brought you into being interested in Web3?
So I've got quite an interesting background, quite unusual, I guess. I'm from Australia. I moved to London and I studied art history and archaeology. I worked for a lot of art galleries like the Lisson Gallery, the British Museum, and I managed a private art collection. A guy called James Birch. He took like Francis Bacon to Moscow and discovered Grayson Perry and knew like Damien Hirst. So it was very much in that they call it YBAs, the Young British Artist Movement. And when I came back to Australia, I actually thought I was just going to wander into a job at the Museum of Contemporary Art here in Australia. But little did I know the curators do not move. And Liz Ann McGregor, who's the director of that, she's been there for 22 years. So basically, I realized that I couldn't really find, unless you work for a commercial gallery, there's usually only about 5 people that work for them. I realized that I had to start my own thing. So I started Art Pharmacy. I've got 2 kids. When my daughter Scarlett, who was she was 9 months when I had my first exhibition. So I really came from doing pop-up shows and was very much in that very grassroots. Like we couldn't really make money for the first couple of years. And then I ran an art fair, brought an art fair from Australia, from the UK to Australia. And I launched 2 businesses at the art fair called Art Pharmacy Consulting and Cultural Walking Tours. So I did it at the same time. So I'm on my 3rd business because I've got Sugar Glider Digital now, which is actually like I've even thought about another new business recently. It's funny when you start a mindset things start opening up. But my parents weren't entrepreneurs, because I've got this thing now. I meet people that are entrepreneurs and they're like younger than me, and I get jealous of them because I'm like, oh my God, if I started younger, would have been way ahead. And I asked them about their parents, because both my parents were very, like engineer, and my mum used to work for a health retreat. So no entrepreneurialism in there at all.
That's funny. You mentioned mindset. Can you tell me more about like what do you mean by once you have the mindset that you have all these ideas and you want to keep going?
Well, the thing is, the only difference between you, me, and anyone we meet in the world is mindset. That's another thing I've realized in life. I used to think, oh, it's from your background, or you had this, or you got a better education, or it's just actually mindset. That's the only different. It's just the way that you have to train your brain. I'm very much about, show me your 5 people you hang around, and I'll show you the person you are. So especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out and you have someone and you tell them your idea and they go, oh, that's a really bad idea, and you trust them, you actually take on their advice and you actually get upset by that. So you just really need to be around people that are going, yep, go for it, why not? Or, and people that are honest, not just like, and it's hard to find. So I think if you can nail that in life, you can nail it all. That's one thing I've realized. So it takes a long time to get there, but you've got to just do it in every moment.
So it's about confidence and knowing that you can take something through to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's not through to the end. I think it's just having a vision and not letting. I mean, I've got this big thing about education at the moment. Both my kids are going through school, and I think the whole education system sucks, because if you're, if you're dyslexic, you're a little bit different. If you're not like a super nerd that's getting straight A's, both my kids are not, getting through school. I think if we had a different schooling system, it would be very, very different. So I think that's also when you come out of school and you didn't have a really great schooling, you just automatically think you didn't go well in life. But I think you just have to retrain your brain out of that as well. So yeah, I think there's so many factors to it as well. I think that confidence thing is yeah, I think it does help. It's especially when you can that belief in yourself, I guess. I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's funny that you went into educate. I am a former public school teacher. It's actually been most of my career and how
There
I
you
kind of
go.
landed as an educator at CryptoChicks. So we could talk about the faults in the education system all day long.
Oh
But yeah, I
gosh, I'm
think
sorry about
it's
that.
oh no, it's okay. It's very true. That's why I left. Like nobody, I think, leaves education because they're like, man, the kids are awful. It's like the system sucks.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think that the real crime is that they're not taught the skills that you need to be an entrepreneur. There's no creative thinking support or problem solving or creativity or even like the interpersonal development that's really necessary for doing something scary like starting a business, which is like building trust with yourself and understanding discipline. It's so much more about here's how to fit in a box and how to be an employee and how to be well behaved. And most of those things don't really serve you very well outside of a very structured system. So
That's
I'm
right.
excited that you've kind of like shifted your perspective. And so you started with art pharmacy and then a walking tour business and now sugar glider.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. And then the other day I was at a property conference, and because that's where my art pharmacy is, we do a lot of work with property developers. They're our main clients, and more corporate clients like the Deloittes or Accenture uh, of the world. And I don't know. I just realize I really want to. I'm very much a creative, and everyone's designing and building these developments everywhere, and no one's really thinking about the creative hub and what creatives bring to that area. And I thought maybe I should start my own property development. I was like, that's crazy, but I've even thought about a name, and I thought, wow, it's going to take a lot, but it's just trying to find the niche where you realize that no one's actually looking, and knowing what that is, and also finding what your superpower is, right? Because I think a lot of people in life don't actually know what they're really good at, if that makes sense. Like Yeah, I think you need to find out what that is, and yeah, find that and own that really. Own your superpower. And it doesn't have to be much. It can be very small, but if you can really tap into that and own that, because I always say if you know what your strengths are and you know what your weaknesses are, you're winning in life. And I'm not a very good writer. I've never been a writer, but I've written a book called Making Art Matter, and I've got a second book coming out in a couple of months. So you find people to help you with that rather than running through that. You just get that help and knowing what they are. So, which is exciting.
That's so cool. I want to hear more about what that process of learning what you were good at looked like. Because for me, it was trying a whole lot of things that I was not good at.
Yes. Well, also, and I think, yeah, it's well, when you're sitting in a thing and you find it really hard and it takes too long, then you're probably not good at it, or you're not getting coached the right way. I think that's the other thing, like finding the right coach or learning as well. I think that's getting a coach is really important. Like I've just started getting a personal trainer, and I feel a bit guilty about that because it's expensive. But my friend said, no, everyone needs coaches sometimes. And I feel so much better having a coach in the gym, not knowing how to use these crazy things with all these men that are like pushing stuff. But I've grown confidence in that because I've got someone that I've got a female coach, and she walks around as if like it's so easy. So I think if you are struggling with things, do find a coach, and they're worth their weight in gold as well. But make sure that you like what their mindset is and read their books and go on their podcast before, because as soon as they come into your mind, it can actually change the way that you think about the world. Um, yeah, I'm always trying new things all the time, I guess. But I didn't really know what my strengths were. I'm 40 now, over 40. I think in my 20s were hard because you're trying to sort of, I don't know, and then 30s you get to know who your friends are, and I think 40 just you get your confidence, I guess. I think that's one thing that you get to your 40s, you know who you want to be, and you don't need to impress anybody either. I think that's the other thing. You don't care about impressing anyone, and you know that people won't like you. I think in those early days, you want everyone to like you, but now I'm like, well, there'll be a lot of people that like me and a lot of people that don't like me, and you just got to find your tribe, I guess. It's you gotta, it's like the crypto chicks, right? Get to hang out with the tribe of women that we're all, cool people together. Like we all understand each other. We all know that we're a minority within this tech world, Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much vulnerability in putting yourself out there for for anything. But I joined the Web3 world in January and had been like a teacher ever, all up until that point. And so it was a whole lot of me not knowing what was going on around me for a while. And I think being able to just be willing to fall on your face and be wrong and ask for help and try new things and not have so much judgment for yourself when something isn't a good fit. I think a lot of times our
That's
tendency
right.
is to think that something's wrong with us if something doesn't work out, when really it doesn't really have to mean that. It can mean anything. It just means it's not a good fit. But yeah, I really love the coaching perspective and the idea of just kind of like finding the things that make you feel good and that kind of flow. Like there's definitely a balance of investing in the education and the coaching and putting in the hard work, but there should also be this like ease to it, in that it feels good and you like what you're doing, or you're at least very interested. Like there's like feeling of lit up kind of.
Passion.
Yeah. So tell us about Sugar Glider. Tell me about that project and kind of how did that something start before you started learning about Web3, or and then you kind of like figured out how to incorporate it, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, and great question. I've been running art pharmacy for about 10 years. I think it's actually, I realized over here, because I'm in Sydney, Australia, there, I think we get to when you have to actually, start paying your taxes, sort of thing. We're up to 10 years in the industry, and it's hard making money out of art. Like it's really hard. Like there's not many businesses like me in Australia, because I meet a lot of entrepreneurs all the time. And I thought if I'm running another business, I'd be making way more money. But I'm so passionate. I'm so happy with what I do. I think you just came back to what you said before about, it's all, for me, it's all about passion. It's about being open. Um, and I couldn't, in a way, I still can't believe that I make money off what we do, to be honest. Like it still surprises me to this day. And also how hard it is. Like it's so hard to get money out of these clients sometimes because they don't actually value art. I find that really, but then I've got these other days where I'm really passionate about it. So I've been running it for 10 years. We went through COVID, which was really horrendous, especially for an arts organization. And in Australia, we did have quite severe lockdowns. I was meeting people in America and they told me they didn't have a lockdown over there. I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. But we had it really bad. So the business did fall, but I was okay with that. And then when it came out of that, what I realized was with my business, I'm a consultancy, so I consult to clients. So and I'm always thinking about projects start and projects end. And I thought this is not the way it is. And I'm around a lot of entrepreneurs, and I see these people that are just sitting back doing nothing, and then having their money roll in, and it's called reoccurring revenue. So I had a bit of a moment. So anyone who's listening to this podcast, try and think about reoccurring revenue, because you can, and that's where Sugar Glider has come from, is that I can sit back and not have to work. It's not happened to me yet, so just watch this space. But that's what I'm trying to bring at the moment, is how I can build a business, and then it's supporting artists, it's supporting our clients and everyone. So that's the model. I'm a part of EO, it's Entrepreneur Organization here in Sydney, and it's a global peer-to-peer learning. And there's always these events on, like, learning. And one of them was Yatsu, because I heard about NFTs, and he's from Animoca. So he was talking, and just loved him. He was like, oh my God, he was just really great. He talked about Facebook and how with Facebook you have to like pay to market to your own fans. And that happens to us as well at Art Finance. You've got like, thousands of people, but then I have to pay for an ad to talk to my fans, which is just outrageous, really. And then he was talking about his parents who were musicians, and it really struck a chord with me, because I thought he understands artists, and I thought he built the company, his philosophy will. So anyway, I applied for this funding. So we got pre-seed funding. There was thousands of people applied, and I was one of, I think, 27. And I've gone through it like a cohort. It was online. I did basically an MBA, it felt like, in NFTs. And then afterwards, I went to the US for 3.5 weeks just learning. So just by myself, I just turned up to these conferences, and I was, just just went for it, which is a little bit crazy when I think about it, but it was good. And so I got this pre-seed funding. So it's called Sugar Glider Digital. So it's this little animal that, I'm not sure if anyone knows about it. I met a guy down in Melbourne, and I said, Sugar Glider. He goes, and I said, yes, that's it. He made this little sound with it, this 50-year-old guy. And I thought that was so cute that he did that, because he was evoking his childhood memories of the animal. And so yeah, the sugar glider flies from one tree to the other in the dark, and they're a marsupial, so they feed their animals like milk, and they're born. They anyway. Yeah, anyway, I won't go too much into the marsupial, but they fly from one tree to the other, and it's Web2 to Web3. So it's my journey from Web2 to Web3, and that's where the actual name came from, is my learning journey, if that makes sense. So yeah, so we put digital art assets in the public realm with our current clients with Art Pharmacy. We mainly work in that 2D space, or traditional painters. We do a lot of public art. We do mural artworks. We do corporate art collections for Deloitte. We've done their Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra, and Western Sydney offices. So we will go and find artists for their offices. We do lots of different things. We've got so many projects on. You can have a look at artpharmacy.com.au in Australia. We're a B Corporation, so we support a lot of artists out there. Within Art Pharmacy, we're managing digital art projects for the last 3 years. There's a really big job we did for 80 Collins Street down in Melbourne, this huge 12 metre by 8 metre. It's just like enormous. and we put digital artworks on there, and all our clients keep coming back and asking for digital art, and I thought, wow, there's something here. So, and because it's very different from traditional art, it's more of a technology, I actually broke it off, and that's where I'm just sort of focusing all my efforts on. We've got clients already for it, which is great. So all those big screens, they're digital artworks, and we're using Web3, or the blockchain technology for royalties for the artist. So once we mint the artwork, the artist gets royalties, and we're looking at also partnering with the charity as well. So I'm not sort of super deep in that. We're not really doing the NFTs. I've thought about that. Um, I just There's so much to learn, and also I've got a reputation. I think if you're sort of just starting out, you can just try something new. But I'm very wary about who I'm partnering with in the space, because especially now as well with what's going on. um yeah, so that's where we're at the moment. I'm looking at I love the US. I'm looking at opening up an office in America somewhere, probably New York. And just after my trip over there, I just realized there's 300 million. There's such a bigger market, where Australia, it's like a little island off the world that no one can get to, and it takes too long to fly anywhere. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things that I noted that I wanted to touch on. First, I love that you saw Yatsu speak. I saw him speak at NFTLA, and he just had such this grounded presence, but this really excited, visionary perspective, and everything was rooted in this sense of interconnectedness. And I just really loved everything he had to say about kind of the ethos of what Web3 is going to represent. And yeah, so that's exciting that that was kind of an inspiration for you. You talked a bit about the sustainability piece, that recurring income, that you don't, that maybe, sort of passive income, like you do have to do work for it, but maybe it's just once and then it's kind of set up to be sustainable. How did you identify that? And how do you think about scaling that? Was that something that you envisioned from the very beginning, or did it kind of develop as you went along in your plan?
It probably developed as I went along. And the great thing is I was sitting in the problem like for years. It wasn't like, and that's what I did find when I was in America. Like, I was asking people about their businesses, and I didn't really understand them. I was like, oh, what actually is that? So, and this is still in the bull rush, the gold rush, now that the projects are sort of, so I was sitting in the problem, and I realized that with a lot of our clients, they actually don't want to commission artworks, because it takes a long time. So when you come to Art Pharmacy, you'll say, I've got a 17-meter wall, or I'm doing this master plan development where there's a supermarket and there's like, apartments, and so they need public artwork, and you can't just get an artwork and put it straight in there. You've actually got to commission it, and it takes time. You've got to go to the council. You have to sit around and you have to suggest a long list of artists. So you have to go through a long, yeah, it's months and months, especially when you're working with these large corporate clients. They cannot make decisions. So, and especially the CEO or the marketing people within these organizations, they will have to get everyone to sign off, because art is so subjective, and it's also the most talked about thing. Like, they don't really care about maybe the floor. No one's ever going to talk about the floor coverings, but people will talk about art. So the idea is, you've got enough digital artwork for anyone to make a selection of, and we're working with curators all around the world, with their side, as well, which is really great.
That is really great. That is something that everybody notices. Well, most people notice, I think, when you walk into a space, is what you're looking at. And I think when we come to hard times, like, over the past few years, people don't appreciate the art so much when things are going really well and life is easy and simple. It's when you need a lift in spirits, or to be connected to your human experience in a new way, or to feel like connection in an emotion. That's when we really start to appreciate art or poetry or any of those things. It's the times that we're lowest that we need it the most, and it's a shame, because that tends to be when people don't pay for it as much.
That's right, and it's such a subject. I mean, and I love the way that artists are and who they are. And the thing is, when I say when an artist paints you or does something, it's they're revealing a part of their soul. I guess that's the thing. They go so deep into, they're coming out and they're talk. This is why we never reject any artist that we work with, because we know that. And it's happened to me before when I've been on set, or I was on Foxtel Arts a couple of years ago, and I had one of the production managers say to me, "Oh, Amelia, I sent you your some artworks," and I was like, "Oh, really?" And then I'm going back into his, found he was, one of the productions very high up at Foxtel, but he'd sent me his artwork as well, and you just don't know, who's out there trying to, it's the thing is, there's a lot of artists hidden among us, either theatre people, musicians, artists. I'm always surprised. And even when I'm in these big, large corporate boardrooms and everything, I'll ask people, hey, do you send your kids to school, to art school or theatre, and then you start talking to them, and then you start opening them up, and then they'll come out and say, yeah, actually, oh yes, when I was younger, I did A-level art, and my parents told me I need to do this. So it's interesting. It's such a part of our lives, except we don't value it in our society. We value money. We value money. It's actually quite sad. I don't know what's happened to this world in a way, and it gets me so angry. I was like, how can we value something that, yeah, it's monetary things and it can buy you things, but why aren't we valuing culture and art that actually makes our cities so much more vibrant and connects us? So maybe I just need to be reborn into another life where that is valued.
I think Web3 has the potential for kind of redefining how we consider value and exchange. The fact that we're just like making up our own currencies. Granted, they're backed by some things, but we're. I think that the root of the movement is we are trying to redefine what we find valuable, and how we consider contributions, and even how we work together in organizations. You mentioned that some of those larger companies, they take forever to make decisions, and I've started to work a little bit in DAOs in the Web3 space, and I've definitely found that a lot of those large organization issues still exist in a decentralized organization. It's like when there's too much structure, nothing gets done, and when there's absolutely none, also nothing gets done. So you have to kind of find this place where everyone's in some sort of flow, where they have some level of accountability, but also some freedom and flexibility. Because I think as humans, it really doesn't matter what your role is. There needs to be some level of creative freedom in your life, or you feel stagnant, and stagnant people eventually start to fade out, fade out of the work that they're doing, or look for something
Yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah. And I think it comes back to the great resignation. A lot of people are resigning, yeah, because they're not happy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, giving yourself that opportunity to sit with life when things are going wrong, and just having that opportunity to look at the choices that you were making and the way that your life was set up, and then deciding like, I can make a different choice. I can create something entirely new from this. And it's exciting and inspiring to see that so many people actually took that step, and it's definitely
Mm.
produced a lot of innovation.
Totally. I mean, we only get to live one life, right? We got to do it well. And the other thing is, you got to do it when you're young, because I now meet people in their 50s and 60s, and they look tired. You can see it. Like I said, I've got some friends that are a bit older than me, and they're tired. They've been working a lot of their times. And that's why I've realized, actually, this is the time for me to put in as much energy as I possibly can give it, because this is when I've still got energy. So yeah, that's been another, I suppose, a perspective for me is, I don't want to be working so hard when I get to a certain age, and we're all expected to work till we're right in. And I was like, nah, I don't want that. So I've had to re-engineer my life to try and, catch up, I guess.
So what did it look like when you saw this problem, you had this idea for a business model that you wanted to start? What did it look like for taking the first steps? Was it community building? Was it looking for funding? What did you do to hit the ground running?
Um, well, I think you need it before you get funding. Don't go and get the funding, because until you actually know who you want, what you're actually doing, like really think about what your product is. I think that's 101. Like, what are you actually selling? How are you going to make money? And who your actual clients are. Like, that's just the most obvious thing. And I've met people and they're like, started this idea, and I was like, but who's your clients? Who's actually going to buy it? Who's going to pay for this? Who's going to give you money for it? If you can really hone into that section, then you gain. You're really winning. So I think that's number one. And think about it, like do a big whiteboard, what your idea is, and then just sit in the idea and start opening up the chapters. And if you're working full time, like what you were doing before as a teacher or whatever, you can start it on the side. It takes about 5 to 7 years to actually have a really decent business. The first year is really hard, but if you can start it on the side, on the weekends, start the social media, start these things, start getting to know people, like turning up to events, learning from others. And then also the whole idea of ideas is there's no one idea that's someone's own. It's that idea has been propagated and you used and reused in the trends. So it's and just starting, just going and starting. Like I think I do meet a lot of people that can and because I'm always like, right, let's just do it, let's just try it, and I'll learn on the go. But I realize that's actually probably a strength of mine, because I do meet people go, oh, I can't believe you can do that. Like, I've got to check everything and I've got to like go over. I was like, oh no, if you overthink things, you just it's going to hamstring you, and then you'll never put anything out, because you'll almost be too much of a perfectionist. So I think take away perfectionism, and when you do launch, the thing is, I think a lot of people think you launch and it's going to be this big thing, but actually that's going to be the next hardest thing, is actually making, to survive, and being around people and understanding what your role is within the business. If you are having a co-founder, I've run my own 2 businesses before by myself, and then recently I'm bringing somebody in that I'm sort of going through that at the moment, like how that works, what their role is, and how we work together, and just being really defined, and having clear process documents. I know that sounds really boring, and it is, but process the documents for B Corp. There's a really good book that I read. It's called EOS, but it's called Traction, and it's for entrepreneurials, and it's entrepreneurs. I've read it, and there's another book that's come out which I'm going to read again, and they call it playbooks or processes, like what happens when a new customer comes in, how do you deal with your customers, how you deal with this and this within your organization. So when you start growing, you don't have to sit down. You still sit down with a person, but you can actually hand over your business Bible. And then that business Bible one day is when you do go to sell, it'll be a part of that. But start that really early on, and what your vision is as well. Another tip would also be getting away from the office every 3 months and having like a strategy day with your team, where you're going, get them on board as well. And if you can, once you start getting money, is get a 2IC. So you're not just the one in the weeds, that you're actually more the strategic visionary, and then you've got someone managing your business for you. So with Art Pharmacy, I've done that. And now I'm now interviewing actually for Sugar Glider, and what I'm looking for is someone that can actually run the business, where I'm more of, meeting the clients, being more strategic, is just really thinking you can't be everything, and thinking about what your weaknesses are and your strengths are.
Nice. And then hiring out the team to support you in that.
That's right. Exactly.
So you talked about like coming up with your plan, knowing your customer, and kind of sitting in that idea and then allowing it to evolve. I love that you mentioned an educational resource for kind of getting the processes started. I had a friend she was really excited to start a business with a friend of hers, and they trusted one another. It seemed like it was going to be a very easy and obvious arrangement, but they didn't have anything written down, or like articles of incorporation or any of those things in place before they actually started spending money and getting a lease on a property and all of these things. And then they realized that there was nothing written down, and to try and like figure all of that out after the fact was really difficult. And there was already skin in the game. So having like a clear plan and list of processes in the beginning is super helpful. I love that advice.
Yeah, and I think also coming to that is actually having shareholders agreements if you have somebody. I think that is, you from the beginning, you need to have really good, like, find a lawyer. They don't have to be expensive. There's like, and you could find someone out there, but always or attorney, you call it, I think in America, attorney. Um, think about, I think really thinking about having a good someone great, and being really clear. What happens when you decide that this isn't working? What happens when you have a baby? What happens when your husband moves overseas? What happens if there's a death? What is going to happen with that business? And thinking about all those from the beginning. And when I spoke to my lawyer yesterday about a shareholders agreement, he said the thing is, Amelia, if you can have a shareholders agreement and you can talk about this in the early stages when you guys are friends, it's wonderful. And then you put it down in the bottom drawer and you leave it. And then when something goes wrong, you take it from the bottom drawer. And he also said, if you're already having problems and you can't sort this out from the beginning, it's not a match. I was like, okay, that's interesting too. He said, contracts are just to say, this is exactly what I'm thinking. Is this what you're thinking? Yes. So that's another really, because I'm a creative as well, I never really understood the idea of lawyers and this and that. I always had them because my husband's father's a lawyer, and I'm so glad he instilled that into me, is you do need to have contracts, unfortunately. And the thing is, nothing ever goes wrong because from the beginning, you're sending these contracts and you're being really clear about what the expectation is. I also do a thing called How We Work, because we work with large corporations and sometimes they don't want to sign our contracts, but I'll tell them we're B Corp, we expect to get paid within 30 days, we're expecting that we're treated with respect, we pay out, we tell them exactly what our philosophy of our business is.
Nice. Being very, yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah. I that's like the basic rule of teaching is to make your expectations extremely clear for your students and to let them know what will happen if they don't meet those expectations. And having that like very clear foundation at the beginning makes something like managing a room full of 30, 15-year-olds so much easier. And I found that in transitioning to a more corporate work structure or even more freelance, I mean, technically I'm a contractor. So if I consider that when I talk with, new customers or that I want to work with, new business relationships, making it really clear from the beginning, like what I expect, how I expect to be treated, how many revisions I'll offer at a given price, and what my timeline looks like, and all of that up front, it just makes things so much easier moving forward because we've made it all very clear from the beginning.
Exactly. I'm just trying to I could picture you in the classroom. It's so true, especially if you're dealing with the 16-year-olds. That would have been a hard job. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, gosh, that's an amazing skill to have, to be a teacher, I think.
It's been helpful. I think like I did not appreciate the work ethic that's required to be a teacher until I moved into other jobs that were not teaching. I'm like, wait a minute, I can go to the bathroom whenever I want. So that's been really useful for me. So before we wrap up, I know we're coming close on time. I feel like this has already been super helpful in kind of understanding the thought process and laying the foundation for starting your own business. What would you say the biggest obstacle that you've come across in business development has been, and how did you work your way into like overcoming it?
I think the product, you've got to really be clear of what you're giving your end user. What is the product? Is there are you giving a middle, beginning, middle, and expensive option? I'd always give options. Don't just give one product. I think that's 101. Just what is your product? What are you delivering? And make it really simple. Do not overcomplicate it. We deliver commission digital artworks, or we do subscription. You get 3, 6, or 12 artworks delivered every 3 months. Really simple. So just think about that, what your product is and how you're going to deliver it. Yeah, what are the obstacles? I think, look, being female, it's definitely an obstacle. Just know that it's hard. Yeah, I didn't. It's because I've been in the arts. I've gone into tourism. And now I'm going into tech. So this is the third area I've gone in. And you've got to remember, I've come from art going into tech, and I thought NFTs, everyone would actually understand about art. But you've got the Christie's and Sotheby's, and then you've got these NFT businesses that actually don't really know about art at all. I was expecting everyone to know. And there's this middle bits missing from there. So that's where I come in as the art curator, where I'm not the really high end and I'm not down here. So yeah, I think this is the third area I've actually been in. And I'm learning how. The thing is, I think you've almost got to be a chameleon when you walk into these new. You got to slunk in and just sort of, get your those little eyeballs and look around the whole area, because it is, and it's like in anything, you have to start from the beginning and you have to learn. So it's like when someone goes into banking or someone goes into anything, there's always a massive like learning curve, and it takes about 6 months to really get to being a subject matter expert. They say you need to be like 5 to 7 years, which I thought was really interesting. And so I think just getting in and just really looking around and researching in your area, and be really brave with that. But yeah, going into this, it's funny because I was so attracted to CryptoChicks, and because it's so nice to be around a lot of females. I think that's really important. Yeah, I can send you the links of how to sort of contact us as well, so you can put it into the downstairs. With the podcast and everything. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Bye, Amelia. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of CryptoChicks Corner. I hope it was helpful. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you're notified when we release new episodes to build on what you just learned. We would love for you to take a moment to rate and review the show to help us serve more entrepreneurs. And remember that anyone can join our CryptoChicks Academy to take courses from experts in the field, and our hatchery can help you transform your business idea into a well-funded startup. Check out our show notes to get started, and we look forward to seeing you shine. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the support of our incredible sponsors. Women of Crypto is an NFT avatar collection that's the first of its kind, 3D rendered, and meant to represent the diversity and beauty of every single woman in the world. Their efforts are invested to bridge the gender gap and inspire and invigorate more women to participate in the world of crypto. Women of Crypto is a Metatora project, and we're so proud to partner with them. We also want to thank Metis. Metis is an Ethereum Layer 2 optimistic rollup platform to help you launch into the Web3 economy. Their platform harnesses the security and decentralization strengths of the Ethereum network with the added benefit of fast, low-cost transactions, native storage, and a user-friendly interface to make deploying your project simple and stress-free. Whether you're expanding projects in decentralized finance, NFTs, gaming, community, or you want to take your Web2 business to the next level, Metis is the platform for you.